You flip through a novel's pages, but set it down untouched. Fiction just doesn't captivate you like it does avid readers. A book club invitation arrives, and you decline gracefully. The allure of imagined worlds and character arcs feels like unnecessary escapism at best, a diversion from reality at worst. In a society where stories shape entertainment, empathy, and even education, you traverse truths, grounded in non-fiction tones, documentaries, or lived experiences, undisturbed by the lack of literary fantasies. Why do some of us stay steadfast in factual realms, viewing fiction as optional ornament rather than immersive imperative? What's grounded in the psyche and soma when narratives don't ignite, transforming tales into tedious trivia while multitudes immerse? Tonight, we're bookmarking the psychology and physiology of those who don't read fiction. It's not illiteracy or indifference, it's a refined rubric of cognitive choices, hormonal hierarchies, and perceptual preferences that elevate empirical engagement over embroidered epics, rendering reality the riveting read. Leaf into the literalism. A chapter unfolds, and for most, the default mode network activates, weaving with the temporoparietal junction for theory of mind thrills. Plot twists spike dopamine via the ventral tegmental area. Empathy surges oxytocin through character connections. But for non-fiction aficionados, this pathway pulses partially. The lateral prefrontal cortex assesses the prose, yet linkage to the anterior cingulate for emotional investment lags. No norepinephrine nudge from cliffhangers or serotonin soothe from resolutions. Physiologically, it's anchored. No parasympathetic dip into relaxation from rhythmic reading. Pulse unchanged. Adrenals unaroused by suspense. It's pragmatic. Mental bandwidth conserved for verifiable insights. Fusiform gyrus not fixating on fabricated faces. Investigations from cognitive neuropsychology reveal genetic influences on serotonin receptors, such as HTR2A polymorphisms, that temper fictional anhedonia, where stories fail to foster feel-good floods. The body regards plots as peripheral, sympathetic systems set for scrutiny over surrender. Evolutionary essence. In primal periods, discerning dangers demanded data over dreams. Now it means biographies over bestsellers, with cortisol controlled absent the vicarious stressors of fictional foes. Uncover the truth trackers. These minds meticulously map inputs, often analytical or pragmatic personalities. Their precunious prioritizes pattern recognition in real events over speculative scenarios. Born from backgrounds emphasizing education or empiricism, households stocked with encyclopedias, not fairy tales, their executive function network attunes to analysis, not abstraction. Self-determination theory posits intrinsic motivations geared toward competence and autonomy. Ventral striatum rewards mastery of facts, not flights of fancy. Physiologically, this fortifies fortitude. No acetylcholine overload from intricate inventions. Dopamine dialed for discoveries in history or science. Ever skimmed a saga only to pivot productively to a podcast? That's the dorsolateral prefrontal reallocating. Endorphins from evidence, not escapades. Thyroid hormones steady, sidestepping the metabolic dips from sedentary story sessions. They forego fiction since it doesn't fortify. Body blooms in informational immersion, with mitochondrial efficiency enhanced sans the oxidative oscillations of emotional roller coasters. Immune responses robust, without inflammatory echoes from imagined injustices.
Probe the realism retainers. For them, fiction's fabrications feel futile. Archetypes echo archetypes. Morals mimic life lessons they'd rather learn firsthand. Their insula appraises authenticity, with subtle cortisol cues to contrived conflicts. No oxytocin overflow from bonded book buddies. Frequently tied to high openness in personality inventories but low neuroticism, the medial orbitofrontal cortex underweighs whimsical worth, championing concreteness. Physiologically, this preserves poise. Norepinephrine normalized against narrative nerves, enteric nervous system serene without gut-wrenching twists that could exacerbate sensitivities like IBS. They sideline stories not from scorn, but selectivity. Body balances, no vasoconstriction from virtual villains, serotonin from self-scripted successes like skill building. Per a 2024 meta-analysis in Psychological Science, non-fiction readers exhibit superior sleep architecture, crediting it to absent rumination on unresolved arcs. Circadian cortisol curves smoother, devoid of late-night just one more chapter disruptions that spike glucose and hinder recovery. Extend to the efficiency engineers. In fast-paced professions, engineers, executives, their basal ganglia builds habits around utility, deeming fiction a luxury leak. Dopamine loops laud logic, yet studies in Journal of Experimental Psychology demonstrate narrative immersion disrupts working memory via dual-task demands. Physiologically, abstaining aligns acetylcholine for acuity, no interference like phantom plots pilfering prefrontal power. Hippocampal mapping meticulous minus metaphorical muddles. They bypass books for brevity boosts, adrenals allocated to actionable agendas, non-REM phases profound without dreamlike distortions. A 2025 study from Nature Neuroscience links fiction avoidance to heightened cognitive reserve, with reduced beta-amyloid buildup in aging brains, fostering longevity through laser-focused learning. Infuse the introspection insulators. Wary of emotional entanglement, they ward off worlds that warp introspection. Protagonists provoke projections they'd prefer to process privately. Amygdala activation attenuates to allegories. No epinephrine echoes from epics or vasopressin from victories. Often correlated with schizotypy spectrums or stoic styles, the posterior cingulate curtails creative contagion, prioritizing personal philosophy. Physiologically, this upholds homeostasis. Oxytocin optimized for organic interactions, not outsourced ordeals. Hippocampal harmony halts hunger hikes from high-tension tales. They evade escapism for equilibrium. Body eases, no tachycardia from thrillers, enkephalins from enlightened endeavors like meditation. Research in Emotion Journal shows non-fiction preferences predict lower anxiety inventories, with buffered biomarkers like DHEA countering cortisol in crises. Layer in the cultural cartographers. Amid milieus where fiction fuels folklore or frivolity, they chart courses contra-wisely. Hippocampus hyperlinks it to historical hype or hype-driven hobbies. Doctrines like rationalism or realism render it redundant. Ventromedial prefrontal undervalues vicarious voyages. Physiologically, this lessens load. Interleukins lowered in low-drama lifestyles, as detailed in Brain, Behavior, and Immunity. They craft canons of clarity. Epigenetic expressions evolved from evidence-based environs. Cardiovascular calm from contemplation over catharsis. Trauma-tempered text avoiders unveil undercurrents. Scarring scripts from school days or sorrows link literature to loss. Locus coeruleus limiting literary lift. Body barricades. HPA highway hushed, vagal vitality vaulted for vigilant voids. Findings from Clinical Psychology Review affirm fiction-free phases facilitate PTSD processing, with mitigated memory intrusions. Amplify the angles. Immediate incentives involve intellectual integrity. Orbitofrontal oversight open, GABA guiding grounded goals. Enduring effects? Conceivable communal chasms if camaraderie coalesces around classics, serotonin slumps surfacing as solitude strains. Nevertheless, merits multiply. Acute acumen in arguments, robustness in real-world rigors. A 2026 OECD report underscores non-fiction devotees dominating decision-making domains, directing drives to diplomacy or development.
with diminished dementia dangers per Alzheimer's Association data. Yet the factual fulfillment. Non-readers of novels aren't narrow, they're nuanced, profound processors, empirical explorers who extract essence from existence. Their cognition confers clarity, understanding unadorned by artifice, ingenuity in inquiry. Alteration ain't avid adoption, plasticity via purposeful perusals, temporal lobes tuned to tempered tastes. Habits like hybrid reads harness harmony, dopamine from discernment, not devotion. Epiphanies emerge, a fable flipped, no fixation but finesse forms. Body unbiased, awaits wisdom, welcomes whims wisely. Which realism resonates? Truth tracker tracing tangibles, retainer rooting realities, engineer erecting efficiencies, insulator insulating insights, cartographer charting certainties, tempered tuning tranquility, voice if it volumes vaguely. In a narrative-nurtured nexus, fact favorers forge forward, but fiction facultative, not fundamental. You don't demand dramas for depth, details delineate. Your intellect ignored illusions for illumination. Now immerse, tranquility in truths, tenacity in tangibles. Not negation, nay, novelty. That empirical expedition, it expeditions eternally. If this factored a fictional forfeiture, hushed hardcovers hum and harmonious. Your editor of experiences, not enthusiast. Like it if it echoed an empirical essence. Subscribe for more scrutinies on our selective psyches.